allies with this, people who are affected by GBV are mostly neglected in our communities. They're not in getting the support. So we say by why we talk about it, so that it will enable these people at risk, the risky groups, that we will see later who are these people at risk to access these services and the support, the care that they need from us. Lastly, to aid recovery of communities and societies by supporting local and national capacities to create lasting solutions to the problem of GBV. So we talk about it so that we will create solutions that can make lasting solutions to solve the problem of GBV, so that people may not be victims of GBV, that including you and I cannot be a perpetrator of gender-based violence. So by talking about it every day, and then it will make us aware, and we can be creating lasting solutions. Am I too speedy or am okay? Yes. The next one say, what do you understand by the term GVV or the gender-based violence? We look into, people can define GVV in their own ways. It depends on your setting, how you will understand. Because here we say GVV or gender-based violence is an umbrella term for any harmful act that is perpetrated against a person's will, and that is based on socially ascribed. Here we say the word gender based, it's an umbrella term. It's a broad word that or any harmful practices that one penetrated or you does to one another without the consent or the will of that person. So sometimes you don't know that what you're doing is gender based violence, and you find one person is being harmed. So what you're doing, it is gender based violence. And then we say it can be either because of the sex of the person, can be because of the age, because maybe the physical appearance, that will either later cause mental or physical injuries or another form of gender-based violence. So therefore, the one stands, this abbreviation stands for Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, emphasize that the violence is a manifesto of historical and equal power relation between men and women, which have led to the domination over and discrimination against women by men, and to the prevention of full advancement of women. So here, we, this body looks at that gender-based violence has more effect of women and has affected women advancement. Women cannot decide on their own. Women cannot talk, cannot participate. As we say, though gender-based violence is an broad word, but there are specific categories of people that are affected. So therefore, we are looking into women, children who are mostly vulnerable, and in this area of gender-based violence. That's why the one emphasize on the manifestos of unbalanced power. So as we defined before, it can be because of the sex difference, can be because of the power that one is holding. You can easily become a perpetrator of gender-based violence. Yes, looking into some definitions of key terms being used in gender-based violence, and in most occasions, these terms seems to confuse many of us. Yes, we can move to the next slide. Yes, looking into some definitions of key terms being used in gender-based violence. When we are doing the awareness, sometimes dialoguing, we realize these words usually confuse us, even in implementing our programs. Sometimes these terms make us not to put things right when it comes to decision making. One of it is sex. Um, Sex is defined as it is a biological difference between females and males that remains constant. So here most of us get confused when we hear the word sex. They relate to something different, but in gender-based violence, or even when you look currently, what is called sex is that biological difference that happen by nature. It is God created thing, which means if you're a man in Africa or even in Yale or Juba or anywhere, you go to Europe, you remain as a man. And a woman, if it is you're here, you go to America, anywhere you go, you remain as a woman. You cannot change. You cannot change. Some of us may pretend to put something, some makeups to look like a woman. Some women try to put themselves in the shoes of men, but they cannot. So he says it remains constant. It cannot change. Wherever you go, it remains unchanged. The second thing is gender norms. We say gender norms are social principles that govern the behavior of girls, boys, women, and men in society and restrict their gender identity into what is considered. So we realize these gender norms are, are traditionally built on, or these are rules that are being constructed based on our cultures, based on our locality, based on our tribes, and these are to govern people on particular area of residence. So, for instance, we look into this. Even it applies to us. So, what is considered? It hinders your identification or your participation in the community. The brief example here, the fathers will testify, even including the mothers will testify here. Sometimes when you give birth to a baby girl, we usually rush to buy this called the ding dongs or the dollies. And you say this is a girl have to be playing with these things. And if it's a baby boy, sometimes we go and buy these toys, we go and buy these trucks, we go and buy these guns, these toy guns for these boys so that they can be playing with. So if a girl trying to play with a truck, we may easily pick it out. Say, no, 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 you're a girl. You cannot play with this. And we say these are the what we call the gender norms. There are principles that govern the behavior of boys, women, even in participation. The last example from this, boys are directed to a specific colors. Sometimes when we give women, when they're pregnant, they expect to know the sex of their unborn babies so that they can easily buy their favorite colors. We may have some example says boys like blue or green color, girls like purple or pink or red. These colors are for girls, but it is not true. When I will ask you here in our chat box, which color do you like? We realize men and women like the same colors. So it is because the culture says women like these colors. We go and do what the culture says, but these cultures are not written. When we ask you why is it written that boys they like blue or green color, it is not anywhere. So this is what we call the gender norms. And the third one, we're looking into gender roles. We say this gender roles means how we are expected to act, speak, dress, groom, and conduct ourselves based upon our assigned sex. So we realize here um, we're expected to speak. If a woman, for instance, speak too harsh, you say, no, 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 that is not a woman have to speak like that. How do we conduct ourselves in our community? How do we talk? How do we behave? How do we dress? When people dress in a different way, for instance, if a man or a man try to plait his hair, um, the rules say no, 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 you cannot do that. And then we have the assigned roles whereby we say digging it's only for men, weeding it's for women. The other petty domestic works that we usually do in our families, we realize all these are being given to a specific roles. So what we termed in GVB, this becomes gender roles because it does not define. Can man not wash clothes? Sometimes we find women washing is dedicated to women, cooking is dedicated to women. But while men can cook, men can wash clothes and do what woman can do. So when we're doing that, that is called the gender roles. The fourth one is called gender stereotype. A gender stereotype is a generalized view or preperception about attributes or characteristics that are or thought to be possessed by women and men, boys and girls. And this can happen, and it is happening in our communities now. We will judge the person based on the physical appearance. How is this person behaving? There are some things that we expect from a woman. When we look a woman who is tall, giant, and usually can beat the man, sometimes without, you say, no, 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 this is not a woman, this is a man. And when we look into the definition of sex, this person having the organs for female, it does not mean she has become a man because she's tall, she's giant, and she can beat men around in the street. So this when we're doing that, that becomes a gender stereotype. Sometimes the peace we even expect sometimes men who are very thin, they're humble. We say, no, 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 this is not a man. Even when it comes to eating, when you're eating, say, please eat like a man, don't eat like a woman. You look that this becomes a gender stereotypes. So we expect men to eat big food and women will eat small. Sometimes we realize even talking, it says women cannot talk a lot. It is only men that can talk a lot. So by doing that, that becomes a gender stereotypes. So lastly, it's what is called gender. And in most times when we say gender, we say gender refers to social constructed roles, beliefs, norms, expressions, behavior, and identities that men and women, boys and girls are expected from this. So these are socially constructed. So we say gender, it is uh, based on our community context, and this can be the rules that the community can design. For instance, we say uh, men in our community here, I don't know how at your ends. Here in our ends, all cooking is entitled to women. And when we look into the garden work like digging, those heavy works in our families are assigned to to men. We believe, as we say, the stereotype says men are always strong, they have to be giant. So all those heavy works are assigned to men. So therefore, gender says what sometimes we're doing in these ends that we believe it is for men. When you go to the other society, when you go to the other community, it is not the same. That's why it says it can change from society to society. For instance, here, when we say cooking it's only for women. So we find that the society, it is men cooking, it is the opposite. So when it becomes the opposite, that's what we call gender. So it is those are the responsibilities being assigned by the community based on their context. What role is this person have to play in this particular area? Yes, Bida, you can move to the next slide. Yes, this brings us to forms of violence. So there are very many forms of violence, but out of the many, I suggested to share the most core forms of violence that mostly existing. One of it is the sexual violence. We say sexual violence. It's any sexual attempt or act that a perpetrator or one tends to do without or with freely without freely given consent. when it comes to what we call the sexual intercourse and other things, there must be an agreement. So when you're trying to to attack the person, regardless of whether it is a man or woman, you without an agreement from the person, this is what we call the sexual violence. So sometimes this can cause into unwanted pregnancy. It may can be sexual assault, the sexual exploitation, defilement, sexual harassment. So sexual violence does not mean only when you have come together. Sometimes an insult alone, you have violated, insulting somebody's sexual organs. This is not the really. Sometimes we find exposing our sexual or what we call our private parts publicly so that we can attract men for sexual activities. You're violating one's person, and this when you're doing that, you're violating the other person, because for you you're exposing yourself so that people can see that you're calling them for a sexual activity. So by doing that, exposing yourself publicly or even not publicly, you find some of us may go into the social media posting naked. You take a photo which is naked, and then you share it on the media so that people will see, and you're violating somebody who is not ready to see. Remember, what you have, it is called the private and it is not public. So when you bring in the public, that already becomes a sexual violence to one another. The sexual assault, the rape without the consent. So even sometimes touches. Some of you maybe even going in the street, you find a person, a woman or a man comes from nowhere, gives you a kiss. So you realize you become sexually appetized. So when you're in that mood where you are not prepared, there's no consent on agreement, so you become sexually violated. The second one is physical violence. So physical violence, it's an intentional act causing injuries to another person or in a way of bodily contact. So the physical, it's what you can see. It can be through beating, you can see some bruises, you can see some wounds. Some of us may be kicking, burning, like what happened in some parts of our country. You see, the person, the child is very stubborn and they says burning the legs or even beating the child to discipline him or her. It is one way of giving the child discipline. But what you're doing there, it is a physical violence. Sometimes it may cause an injuries. You can break his or her leg or any part of the body. So because you may take an advantage, because we believe it is our way of disciplining our children. Even sometimes our women discipline their men by kicking them, beating them up, burning them. Sometimes they burn them into ashes. So that happen is an act of physical violence. What you can see, you cannot even ask that what happened to you, because you can see wounds. You can see somebody moving with the walking sticks, and this has happened as a result of fighting, or because of the power, because of the position, because of whatever you know better. And we say is any attempt that causes injuries or pain in the other person, that is what we call the physical violence. And the third one is um, psychological or emotional violence. It is any intentional conduct that seriously impairs another person's integrity through threats. So with psychological or emotional, it is what we cannot see, but you can realize this person is having something. So this emotional violence can be caused due to effect of insult or something that has happened, or maybe sometimes we nickname our children, our wives, our husbands, and this gives the person a different thought. The person may think a different. For instance, it is common in our families. We realize for those ones who are married, you may have it may be a child at home, and then you have some misunderstanding with the woman in the house. So in the morning when the woman wakes up, try to beat the child, and he says, "Look at the head. The head is like the one for the father." So as a father, you're there seated next to your wife, and then you say, "What? My head? What happened? Is my head big, or what happened?" What comes into your mind? You begin thinking something different. Oh, this woman have gone, and even sometimes you nickname people. You says you look like a thief. You see, you when you dress, you say this dressing it is for a prostitute. You see, those nicknaming, judging things, it gives somebody psychological torture. The person have become emotionally violated, may have sleepless night, sometimes may have isolation. The person may not easily associate if to do another thing, because he thinks, hey, now if I'm going like this, people are going to call me with these names. People are judging me, calling me like this. So with that, you're violating somebody emotionally. You find this person becomes dull in the family, may not participate because of what we're doing. And then finally, it's socio-economic violence. This form of structural violence in which a specific group are driven in critically. So in this form of socioeconomic, where you find one or a group or an individual is denied the right to own or to operate any income or any social place of gathering or any income generating activity. You find when a woman wanted to get maybe go to market and they begin a small or petty business or something small there to earn a living, so that the person may get some cash to support the family. Sometimes we tend to say, no, 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 you are not allowed to go. Sometimes even denying the rights to go to education. So even sometimes in our families, some people in some communities try to favor a specific sex. We say wanted to pay boys in school, we don't pay women or girls because they're wasting their resources. When it comes to issues of land or resources, we say women does not deserve the right to be given the resources in our families. We maybe own plots. You see those kind of things. The person is denied the rights to do that. So by doing that, that has already become a socio-economic. Or sometimes a person is sick, and you say, no, you cannot go to health center. You just be here. It's okay. You will get better. So by doing that, we realize the person's right to associate. This person may sometimes result into emotional, the psychological violence. This person may again result into isolation, may not do what is needful into the use. Oh yes. This has brought us to what is called the power. And then some people may ask you, why do we talk about power in gender-based violence? How does power contribute? Even wait, many of us, all of us have gone to school, and we may define power in a different way. Can be in a chemical way. We may define it in a physics way. We may define it in what level. I don't know what it is. But again, we say it's a power in gender-based violence. When we're talking about gender-based violence, we realize power it's another contributing factor that some of us are doing. We don't know without knowing that it is because of the power that I have or because of the power that other people have may contribute to gender-based violence. Therefore, we say power. Here is power is the ability to control and access resources, opportunities, privileges, decision making, and decision making process. Therefore, power power dynamics enables individuals to feel entitled to commit violence act against those deemed inferior. So we realize because we have power amid this ourselves, you as an individual or as a group. So realize because I have power, I can do everything in the level that you are, whether at the family level, at the workplace, at the government level, at the institution level, at what level. So because we have power, you have power, you realize I can do this. You may even sometimes decide who will talk. So remember what you're doing because of the power, or maybe because you're above us, you realize people may not talk because you have the power and the authority. Who will talk here? No one may talk because you uh, you have the power. So we realize power when you control those opportunities, the privileges, you find even decision making in the family, you become the final in your workplace or at the organization because you're the project manager, because you're the CEO, you become a controller of everything. Nobody can talk. Any idea that comes in, you say, no, I am the final. So therefore, we are looking into some few dynamics of power here. One of it says power within. So power within is having the personal power to recognize a sense of your own capacities or relate to the person's sense of self-worth and self-knowledge to make difference. So power within, it's that power within you. Sometimes we realize when people are talking, we say, no, I cannot, I don't know how to do this. You find you don't believe in yourself. So you wanted somebody to speak on your behalf. So when somebody speak in your behalf, you become in that group of deemed. So where people are making decisions, you may not know whether things are good or bad at your side. So you may say, no, 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 no. You may not even express. Sometimes you may express yourself, or sometimes because you have that fear, who is that person above me? And then we say power too. Allows team members to maintain their own agency and acknowledge their unique potentials to make a difference or create something new or achieve a goal. So when we look into power two, which means power two sometimes it's a collective responsibilities, which means in your family level, at your workplaces, where the people that you're working with, your subordinates, which means when it comes to decision making, you need to invite people. Don't believe because you are the head, you may have everything, but people, your subordinate may have an idea. So power two, it's a collective responsibility. Which means when we're talking about gender-based violence, we look into the elements of mitigation, implementing. You cannot implement an activity you alone, which means it calls for some people to come in so that it is a collective responsibility. So power two allows team members to maintain their own agency and acknowledge that yes, it is our idea, we own it, so let's do this. So when it comes to implementation, it becomes very easy for one to do that. And then power with shared power that grows out to collaboration and relationship. It is a respect, mutual support, solidarity, empowerment, influence, and collaborative decision making. So power with, it's how you can relate with other people, how you can share your idea, how you can collaborate so that you will see that what we are working it is achieved. For instance, we wanted to handle a case of rape, and in rape cases, as in maybe a community leader or an NGO worker, you may not do that. It needs the legal, maybe the Form 8, which need to get from the police, and it needs this person to be taken to the facility. So therefore, you cannot do that alone because you're not the police, you're not a medical personnel. So therefore, it it needs collective responsibility so that we can easily do that. And then finally, power over. Power over is why you think you're final, where you say, I wanted this to be done today. Nobody may disagree. So people have to agree with you. So when you use power over, you realize people may look at you as the only source of knowledge. Thus, they may easily keep their ideas within them because you may not provide a platform for these people to talk. So power over it's an authority power that but sometimes it's good because you may have something to decide, but at which level can you decide for that? And when we talk about GVB, we realize there are other factors that are contributing factors to GVB. And then we say the causes of violence are associated with attitudes, beliefs, norms, and structures that promote or condone gender-based discrimination and unequal power, whether during emergence or during times of stability. So as we say, when we're talking about gender-based violence, we cannot only talk where there's emergence, we even talk where at the recovery stage, where the country is okay. So therefore, when we're talking about gender-based violence, we talk at any time. That's why it has become the topic, has become the song. So therefore, the other contributing factors, and these contributing factors are put into levels. So there are some levels where decisions are made, where at what level can we contribute, who at that level need to do what at what time. Therefore, the first group here that we look at is at the society level. So we say some contributing factors in this level of society can be a lack of adherence to rules or carving and international laws, where we find the laws are not being implemented, people cannot follow the rules, cannot listen to. So we realize it contribute to gender-based violence. And absence of security of early warning mechanisms. We realize people are not sensitized, are not being informed about the dangers of gender-based violence, how the effect or the consequence of why if you've done something to your fellow colleague, to your fellow neighbor, what will happen. So those, and then lack of security, the safety of the survivors is very low. So you find the absence of security and the early warning mechanisms, you find it is very hard in our societies. And then impurity, including lack of legal framework. So in here we mean um, there are no legal frameworks, so that if you find a criminal eh, of or violating gender-based violence, you're taken into law. Sometimes some societies have not been informed. They may take it. They say there's nothing. It is part of our life. I can do that. You can do this to me. So we realize in other parts, you find that those laws, when people are going out to do awareness, if for instance, if it says if it is the parliament, you have defiled a person, you have to be in prison for 7 years, and that 7 years means 7 years. So which means if those legal frameworks are there, you find people may easily be fearful, but because it is not there, though it is there but not implemented, so you will realize people are trying, it contributes a lot in our society. The fourth bullet here means the economic, social, and gender inequality. So the economic and social and gender inequality. So we find um, in the level of socialization, some specific groups are taken. For instance, men are to participate. In the economic maybe discussions, we realize again men have to take the bigger lead. So therefore, um, when we begin taking one side, leaving the other one, well, we may not become fair to the other. So we think this will contribute, because when it comes to decision making, as we say, is power with it's a collective responsibility here. It may not be implied, and this will contribute at the community level. And then lack of meaningful and active participation of women in leadership, peace building process, and the security sector. So we realize there are only few women who are participants or active participants of in maybe in leadership or in the peace building process. So even in the security sector. So when it comes to decision making, you find when women says it is the men doing this, their ideas are not picked up because the few they may not stand up for their rights. That's why when we look at first, the one was emphasizing on men sitting on the rights of women, it limits the women's participation. So we realize even in our organizations, we realize there are few women who participating, unless I'm seeing Excellence Foundation are only expecting female intern to be there. So the opportunity is given. That's why currently when you go into the the notice board, you say women are highly encouraged to apply. So they're trying to raise up, because we are talking about it, you are talking about it, so that we need to raise the standard of our people in our community. And then lastly, failure to address factors that contribute to violence, such as long-term intimate or loss of skills, livelihood, and interdependence. So failure to address all what this will again contribute, because everyone lives to whom it may concern. Is it mean I'm the only one, or who is next to me? So you find when we don't address these contributing factors at our society level, we may find a number of people being violated. Yes, Bida, you can move to the next slide. The second slide is at the community level. So lack of access to education for females, especially secondary education for adolescents, boys and girls. So we realize when we look into the enrollment in the education, we realize there are few adolescent boys and the girls, or even mostly the girls. There are few of them who are at school, though some partners are trying to support these girls at the school, trying to to give them assistance so that they can be at the class every day. But we realize the number is small. Even when you hear during the national um, declaration of the senior post, the primary 8 results, we realize there are few number of girls in those classes, in the final classes. So therefore, there is a need lack of this education, because when you send this person to a school, may get a new knowledge from friends, may copy something new, and this person can easily become transform or change. So lack of access to education, we find even during the crisis, some people have moved to buses where they cannot access education. Though education is there, but sometimes it is not quality. We realize in some parts a primal leaver is teaching again in a primal, a secondary student is again a teacher at a secondary. So we realize this as it's affecting us. And the lack of economic alternatives for affected population, especially for women, girls, and other groups at risk. So we realize we don't have alternatives. What we know, if it is only this one that we have, if it is farming is an income generating activity or any way of raising funds for the family, we only go for that. So we don't have any other alternatives that we may have for the affected population, especially when we look into the people in South Sudan who are affected by the floods. So if their way of digging is only growing rice, and then because the area is all water, rice may not. There's no any other alternative that they may have. So they may either depend in the rice alone, because yeah, they're affected. Then there's nothing that we can do. And the lack of accessibility and trusted multi-sectoral services for survivors. So we realize at our communities, there's lack of accessibility to the services like the healthy, the legal, and other services that the survivor of GBV need to access. Why? It may happen in the rural area where there's no healthy facility, where there's no accessibility to roads, because we realize it is very hard. Even in some parts of the country, there's no network, one cannot call. And then when we look into the aspect of providing share, um, so giving the PEPs, it have to be within the 72 hours. So because of this lack of accessibility, you find the person may be in danger of getting the sexual transmitted diseases, may be in danger of unwanted pregnancy. So it may result even into death, because we lack this in our localities for the survival. Absence or under representation of female leaders, staff in key service providers or positions. So we realize in most of our
You can proceed, please. Samuel, you can proceed. Samuel, are you there? Samuel, are you there? Samuel, looks like we lost you. Can you guys see the screen? Can you guys see the screen? Yeah, probably. Can you see the screen? Are you able to see the shared screen?
No, we are not seeing.
Oh, the screen is not there. That means what might have gone wrong? Let me share again. Can you see now? Can you see the screen now?
yes.
Okay, great. Samuel, you can say about the control. You can proceed. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I was in bullet number 4 under the community level where it says absence or underrepresentation of female leaders or staff in key service providers or positions. And I say this has happened in many times when even we look physical when we go into our service delivering positions, we realize these positions are mostly led by men. Women are put in the lower positions. So when it comes to decision making and their contributions, and because some of these are when we look into this, the most perpetrators are men, and sometimes they may tend to do that. Sometimes if the person is raped and because this lady or this woman puts on a short skirt, and some says yes, the woman who deserves that, because why do you put on a short skirt? But what is the law says? So we find that if it is not well represented, we realize it contribute at our community level. And then lastly is the hostility communities and the community wide acceptance of violence. So we realize in our communities it is mandatory that if you don't beat your woman, that it does not mean you. Some women love to be beaten by their husbands, so they are loved, and it is accepted in our community that if somebody slaps you, you need to respond. So once if this is accepted in our community, it will contribute our generations, our children that will produce will grow up with the same mindset that it is because it is accepted. If I have to beat you, yes, you have to do that. If I'm beating you, you don't cry. If I'm banning you, you don't cry. If I'm skinning you, you don't talk because the community accept. And sometimes they contribute. When you're beating, they say, yes, you beat. Why? Because it is accepted at our community level. The next slide. So we're looking at the individual or the family level. So at the individual level, we look at lack of basic survival needs or lack of safe access to these survivors or a supply, e.g., food, water, shelter, and hygiene supplies. We find the survivors for GVV at each individual, you may lack this so that because the service providers are verified, as we said earlier on, at the community or at the society level, and then it will be very hard for you to access these services. And then the gender inequality or distribution of family um, resources because of your vulnerability or because of your age, because of your sex. Sometimes when they come, they may not give you your ID is not picked up. They will say, "You're a child. What do you know? You're crippled. You what do you want? You're a lady. We don't give you this." So gender inequality or distribution of family resources. When it comes in, you find this will affect the person and it will become another contributing factors at the individual level. Lack of knowledge or awareness of ac- um, acceptable standards of conduct by humanitarian staffs. So we find this some staffs may humanitarian staffs or workers may misbehave, may take an opportunity of the vulnerability of the age, or maybe when they're giving services, they say yes, because you like this, I can do this A, B, C, D for you, and the person may take that at the individual level without consulting and may do that. And then if it is the staff is not well informed on the conduct of humanitarian staff, may go around and misbehave at the individual level. And then the use of harmful drugs like alcohol and other drugs that we usually do, because sometimes we do things because of the influence of other drugs, and then you cannot realize that what you've done is bad. And sometimes when you're hearted, you say, if I want to fight this person, I have to go and drink. So when you're drunk, you end up doing bad things that may affect you. For instance, you're fighting and this person who is not drunk can beat you up. You may either attend up in raping somebody, and then you may construct the sexual transmitted diseases. You see that, and it will affect you as an individual. And then finally, we talk about the age, the sex, education, and the disability. Yeah, at our level, in the individual level, a person may be below the age of 18. His idea or her idea is not picked right, and then sometimes even when we talk about the sex, because these things are for men, female or women are not allowed to talk. And then the education level, we say no, 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 these things are for educated people. You're illiterate, you may not talk here, you may not contribute anything. And then the disability, when we look people who are disabled or impairment, we can talk about the vision or the visual or whatever kind of impairment. We may pick that one up and then we say no, because this person is disabled, we this person may not contribute an idea, but it's still one part of this person, maybe two or what, can still contribute. So if means food, this person have to eat because he have everything. Maybe if it's having problem with the eye or maybe the ear, does not stop this person from eating. So at the individual level or at the family level, we find these are some of the contributing factors to an individual at our family level and contribute to gender-based violence. We're looking into key contributions for at-risk groups and their contributing factors. So here we have some contributing key contributions that affect the groups at risk. So there are very many groups at risk in our communities. And then even when we're implementing, there are other factors that we need to consider uh, in implementing or in considering these at-risk groups. Sometimes they are minor, sometimes then people may not see them because of their vulnerability, and here we term them to be at the risky. So therefore, if you're implementing or involving in mitigation or doing awareness or dialoguing, please remember that the at risky groups, they need to be considered so that their contributions are put in plan. So in any emergency, there are groups of individuals more vulnerable to harm than other members of the population. This is often because they hold less power in their society, are more dependent on others for survival, are less um, visible to relief workers or otherwise marginalized. And while programming consider the following. So these people mostly depend in others. While there's public gatherings, these people may not go, and they may say you go and listen, you bring the information. Even sometimes some relief workers or humanitarian workers may undermine them. They may not put attention because, as I says, looking into the individual, maybe can be the age, can be the sex, can be the disability, can be the social status of this person. So this will affect. So when we are programming, consider the following: one, be mindful of the protection rights and needs of these at-risk groups and how this may vary within and across different humanitarian settings. So when you're programming, please be mindful about the protection rights and the needs of these at risk. They are the same like you, like me, who needs these services. They need the support. So therefore, don't neglect any group of people out because you say this person doesn't need, it may not have use, but they can still. And then consider the potential intersection of their specific vulnerability to GVV. What form of GVB will these people be affected if you neglect them out? So you need to be mindful and then consider the potential intersection of their specific vulnerability. So every human being has different vulnerability status. So which one do you want to consider here? So please consider them all and then see where you can do it will help you in programming. Finally, plan interventions that strive to reduce their exposure to GVV and other forms of GVV. So when you're programming, please plan the interventions very well, that the activities or your program should suit or should cut across every community, so you know where you're doing your your activity. So factors that contribute to increase for at risk. So the one in the bold, those are at risky groups that I picked some sample. We says adolescent boys and girls, women and children, women and child-headed households. So we realize the most vulnerable people or groups at risk are the adolescents, boys and girls, women and child-headed households. So when you're doing this, we may realize these people in our community. The person can be below the age of 18 and is having, okay, the whole family, it's below the age of 18. The husband is 17, the wife is 15, and they have a child of 3 years. This is already a child-headed family. So sometimes we may neglect this. And then, well, programming for GVB, consider this. And then, what are the factors that contribute to increase for this risk? It can be the age, the sex, and the restricted social status. These people may not be in position to interact because you're a child, you're adolescent, you're a woman. What else can you do that? Lack of access to understandable information about their health or reproductive services. So you find these people may lack this information, and then when they tell their conditions, people may tend to ignore. For instance, if a young girl comes and says, "I'm feeling a stomach ache or abdominal ache," and somebody may think, "Are you pregnant?" So they even rise to conclusion without seeing what happened. Is it the only thing that can make abdominal ache? Does it mean is it the person is pregnant? So lack of access to understandable information about healthy services or reproductive health. So when we talk about reproductive health, it's for everyone. So while programming, and then please consider this, engagement in unsafe livelihood activities. You realize these groups are being involved into a different unsafe livelihood activities. Sometimes brewing alcohol, sometimes prostitution. They are exposed to those risky places so that they may earn a living or maybe some ways of doing heavy works that may generate for them income because of their vulnerability. So when they are engaged in this, they're exposed, and this may contribute to them loss of family members, especially immediate caretaker. That's why when you look into the child-headed households, the adolescent boys, or even these women, so when they lost their dear ones, the people who always provide them support, and if they are not there, you realize it may affect them early and post-marriage that results into motherhood and fatherhood. So we realize in some of our communities, when the person is told without regardless of the age or how prepared is this person, we begin pushing this person to get married. We begin insulting this person as big as you are. You're still single, you don't get a wife, or you need to get married. Why are you wasting time? You're supposed to bring for me my grandson, or maybe my granddaughter, or maybe I wanted to eat a chicken. So when we doing that, we realize sometimes we see our daughters, our sons standing in the streets. After witnessing this, we may say, "No, you're now grown up. Go to that person that you're talking with." So early and post marriage, that's why it results into child-headed households, and it may affect this person cannot manage the family, and then the responsibility becomes hard. That's why you find some children are called abujere in the context. So it doesn't mean the father ran away, but because of the responsibility, this person can easily go, and then increase domestic responsibility that keep the person isolated in the home. So because of these people, they are put a lot of responsibility. So these people have to be isolated. So sometimes that's why it looks like they are not seen with the relief workers and then other implementing people who are implementing all the decision makers. And then dependency on exploitative or unhealthy relationship for basic needs. So we realize these people may go and do other things that unhealthy relationship for basic needs may either go for exchange for sex for other things for their basic needs. Somebody may say, I'm lacking soap. So may say, can I sleep with you and then I pay you, I give you soap. Somebody say, I can pay you your school fees and then in future you become my wife or my husband, or I will have you as husband and then you manage my business. So these people become exposed into unhealthy relationship for basic needs, not because they intend, but because of the factors that they're unable to provide for themselves. That's why they're going to do involve in this unhealthy relationship.